in the form of words. So I'd like to start by sharing a few words from Blanche Hartman's book, Seeds from a Boundless Life. It was published about a year before she died. It's a collection of teachings from her Zen path, her lived experience in this practice. Here she offers 3 quotes. The great poet Emily Dickinson said, "To live is so startling, it leaves little time for anything else." And Brother David Steinholt Rast says, "The greatest surprise is that there is anything at all, that we are here." And from Omran Mikhail Ivanov, "The day I acquired the habit of consciously pronouncing the words, 'thank you,' I felt I had gained possession of a magic wand capable of transforming everything." To be alive, just that. The great surprise that there is, that we are here. The transforming wand of gratitude. Thank you. Thank you especially now. This is a difficult time. Whatever the outcome of the election, we've experienced a kind of national reckoning. One graph I saw from exit polls showed a prime mover for why so many people voted the way they did, nearly half the country, was the issue of race. Black Lives Matter, police reform, law and order, the threat to whiteness. That chart registered the biggest spread between red and blue, more than any other issue. Whatever happens, this is where we are. I'm told that in Tai Chi, there's a basic teaching called the unadjusted step. When you take a step, make a move that's not quite right, rather than adjusting, just stay there. Notice, note exactly where you are. The unadjusted step is a way of naming this moment. It's healing to see it, to face it. One student described this as the 4 bodhisattva vows in action. We are a sharply divided country, but separation doesn't hold up. COVID, racism, fear-mongering, litigation, Trump. Each of these is just another name for me. Wherever you turn, it's your own face. The Vimalakirti Sutra puts this so clearly. Vimalakirti, a deeply enlightened lay practitioner and contemporary of the Buddha, is ill. In a dialogue with Manchushri, Vimalakirti says, "I am sick because the whole world is sick. If everyone's illness were healed, mine would be too. Why? because bodhisattvas come into this world of birth and death for the sake of all beings. And part of being in this world of birth and death is getting sick. When everyone is liberated from illness, I will be too. That's the sutra, a very small part of it. The illness Vimalakirti is talking about is the dis-ease of everything that binds us. The poisons, the hindrances, whatever keeps us from seeing who we truly are, whatever prevents us from letting our hearts be broken open, all the way open. Coming home to the empty, infinite freedom and compassion that is our native ground. Opening to love as love. So I'd like to just read something. I ran across commentary on this passage. This is by Joan Sutherland. I am sick because the whole world is sick. This is the purest formulation of Vimalakirti's absolute, unquestioned, unmitigated, unbuffered, uncompromised allegiance to this world. I am the world, and the world is me. We have one condition. When the world's heart is breaking, my heart breaks. When the morning star rises, I rise with it. I am the sorrow of the world and its joy, and we share the same fate. To love is to love the world, and to hate is to hate the world. The world's healing is my healing, in which I have an infinitesimal and essential part. It is that simple, that naked and open, that settled in the deepest places, the underground delta, where the river of my heart mind meets the sea of the worlds. Here is my condition, out of which everything flows. When I can touch this without twitching, abide here without fleeing, what naturally flows into me from the sea of the world is bodhicitta, the intention toward awakening. Because my awakening is the world's awakening. I am waking because the whole world is waking. So sitting with the Vimalakirti Sutra, with this heartbroken world, with the Bodhisattva vow to resolve all suffering, a koan came to mind. It's in the Hekigan Roku or Blue Cliff Record, there number 3, and the Shoya Roku or Book of Equanimity, number 36. The case is the same in both versions. Here's the case. Master Baa is unwell. Great Master Baa was unwell. The temple steward came to ask him, Master, how are you feeling these days? Great Master Baa said, Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. This is great Master Baso or Mazu, 8th century. Dharma grandson of the 6th Chinese ancestor, Eno or Huineng. After Huineng, Baso is the most famous and influential of the early Chinese Zen masters. His presence alone conveyed the power of his teaching. You can sense it. Huineng predicted to Nangaku, Baso's teacher, "Hereafter, from the area to which you will go, a horse will come forth and trample everyone in the world to death." This is a great compliment to a Zen master. Trampling delusions, bringing all people to the life-giving death of the self that thinks it's separate and that thinks it's central. We have a handful of koans from Baso, each one an atomic kernel. So let's look at the kernel of this case. Here it is again. Great Master Baa was unwell. Some translations say seriously ill. The temple steward came to ask him, "Master, how are you feeling these days?" Great Master Baa said, "Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha." This is Baso's last teaching. He's sick on his deathbed. Indications in the record are that he died the next day. The head monk who ran the affairs of the temple, a big job, came to check on the master. Apparently, it's been a few days since he's gotten around to it. How are you feeling these days? How are you doing, Master? Baso's voice must have been weak, but his response conveys the whole matter, what Zen calls the great matter. Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. That's it. Resounding throughout. Resounding now. This phrase may have been some sort of slang saying in Baso's time. Possibly something like so-so or this and that. If so, what a final teaching. Just so-so. And yet, there's a sutra called Buddha's Names, or Butsu Myoko, that lists the names of 1,000 Buddhas. The count is higher in some versions. 202nd on the list is the moon-faced Buddha. And number 858 is the sun-faced Buddha. The sun-faced Buddha has a lifespan of 1,800 years, almost 2 millennia. The moon-faced Buddha lives for 24 hours, 1 day and 1 night. Eons of time gone in a flash. That's not just how Master Baa is feeling. That's what he is. That's what this is, this very moment. Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. How are you feeling? Things are not well. The throes of the election, the pandemic, the systems of oppression, the deep divide, the list goes on. sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. It's possible to hear Baso's phrase as a dyad, a dualism, long, short, well, ill, life, death. Yasutani Roshi read this as Baso using the moment, a last chance to open the eyes of the temple steward, to open our eyes. Is Baso using dualistic language to upend our sense of separation, to steal away the hyphen, long, short, life, death, form, emptiness, to crack the shell, collapse the division? There's no room for a hyphen. Sit with this koan and the genuineness of Baso's answer strikes home, not the least contrived. Like Vimalakirti, Baso has total allegiance to this world, this frail, all too human and absolutely indivisible world. He's dying and cannot feel well. At the same time, his response cuts through all time, includes all time, now, boundless, timeless. There is no other emptiness. There is no other emptiness than this. 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 I mentioned that Baso was the Dharma grandson of Huineng, the sixth Chinese ancestor, whose line flows into what became the Soto school. Master Sagan was Huineng's most famous Dharma heir, and Sagan's foremost student was Sekito or Shitu, a most remarkable master. One day, Sagan asks Sekito to deliver a letter to Nangaku, the teacher of Baso. Sekito meets Nangaku, and before handing over the letter, asks him, "What is it when one does not revere the saints nor place importance on yourself?" Self here is the true self, your true self or Buddha nature. When every such distinction is gone, what is it? Nangaku says, "Your question is too lofty." Then Sekito says, "Even if I fall into everlasting hell, I do not strive for the liberation and salvation of all Buddhas and saints. Even if I fall into everlasting torment, I will not cry out for help. Wherever I fall, it's okay." Ryon Roshi often mentions this statement, which he has said moves him deeply. In one response, he writes, "The midst of everlasting hell is the midst of salvation. To look for salvation somewhere else is not possible. It is not impossible to grasp this fact without any doubt if you continue and persevere in your practice. But to live and act accordingly is on a different level of difficulty. He goes on, once you get to this point, it is no longer too lofty. I myself aspire to go even one step closer to this level of realization of Sekito. This statement of Sekito, Ryon Roshi says, made even the great Nangaku remain in silence. Sekito wrote that celebrated poem, Song of the Grass Hut, that ends with this line. If you want to know the undying person in the hut, don't separate from this skin bag here and now. It's a mantra for our time. Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. In an earlier teaching, a monk asks Baso, what is the essential meaning of Buddhism? In other words, what is true? What is real? What is this life? Baso said, what is the meaning of this moment? He's been showing it, showing it. A long-time Zen practitioner up in Canada now, 79 years old, so about 40 decades of sitting, recently had this question come up out of her own practice. She asked, what is hindering me from experiencing the now as right now? She was delighted by the question. The only answer is right now. Right now. So early yesterday morning, my partner and I went for a walk, morning after the election. In so many ways, unsettled. As we walked along, one step was the election with its array of sensations. Then the next step, just a step, empty, free, equanimous. Next step, the election. A few steps on, blue sky, morning light. A simple oscillation. Darkness and light are a pair, wrote Sekito, like the foot before and the foot behind in walking. As Manchushri puts it to Vimalakirti, it's just like the lotuses, which don't grow on dry upland plains. They grow in the muck and mire of low-lying marshes. It's only within the mud of the afflictions that sentient beings can give rise to the elements that make up a Buddha, an awakened one. He goes on, if you plant seeds in the sky, they'll never grow. Only when you plant them in well-manured soil can they sprout and flourish. Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. Here we are, right now, alive, with a chance to practice. To live is so startling. It leaves little time for anything else. The greatest surprise is that there is anything at all, that we are here. The day I acquired the habit of consciously pronouncing the words, thank you, I felt I had gained possession of a magic wand capable of transforming everything. Thank you. Thank you for this shared practice.